Hello, everyone, and welcome to Knights of the Tax Roundtable. My name is Justin Chu, and I'm joined here today by Darren Liddell and Cary Gladstone, two of our VITA superstars. And we're here to talk a little bit about FinCap and how you plan on integrating some of that going into this filing season going forward. So I sent a few questions over to them, and I think the first one we want to ask while we sort of deal with this pandemic life that we've all been through is what's one thing you learned about FinCap or FinCap integration in this filing season in particular?
Well, this is Cary, and I'd have to say that I think things kind of took a back seat. We were in a similar situation to a lot of folks in that we had this sudden shutdown and then a lot of trying to figure out what exactly we were going to do. We reopened, irony not lost, on April 15th, and we were able to work virtually. But I think in terms of being able to incorporate FinCap into our tax return preparation, as I say, that had to be kind of put in the parking lot. Our main at that point were to see how we could make sure that all of the folks were served. People were very anxious about getting their tax return done. And when they learned that they would have to do it entirely electronically, they were even more anxious because many people had the technical capability, but not necessarily the tech savvy. And so we had to spend a lot of time talking them through. So our lesson learned from that is now we're in a time of relative calm as we run up to the next tax season. Not sure exactly what it will look like, but we can think more specifically about how to make sure that we're addressing at least the basics of FinCap, whether it's just making sure folks understand that they can split their refund, or referring them to their employer to see if they can make adjustments in their withholding, or to adjustments into how their paycheck is direct deposited in order to work toward that financial stability.
Yeah, thanks, Cary. This is Darren. I'll add to that and say this was a really interesting and unique tax season. We also shifted and kind of like shut down for a period, and then quickly we're trying to move to implement an all virtual model. And I think we had varying levels of success with that, and especially integrating FinCap into it. I think before we typically kind of like at the appointment moment, at the intake moment, like while we're doing the taxes and during QR, have these like points to nudge people to kind of the fintech intervention that we're trying to feature, so whether that be financial coaching or saving at tax time. And I think we decided, because the virtual process was so much longer, that we really wanted to try to like still leave it as a part, but make it not maybe as key of a focus, and kind of get folks to the finish line of the finish line of finishing their taxes, and then from there to just make sure we had a question or two that really spoke to that intervention, so folks knew what other services we were offering. So I guess if there's like one lesson or takeaway I'd probably say from this tax season is, next year will be different. We'll all be a bit more adjusted to virtual, but can we think about how we offer one service and keep it really focused? Is it connecting them with a financial coach? Is it saving a part of their refund, even if it's just for later in the month, later 2 months from now, whenever they possibly can need it, and telling folks that having the savings behavior is important, but then later on allowing them to tap into it and letting them know that the savings is for emergencies. This is a time full of emergencies, so please use that as you see fit. So yeah, I guess all of that to say, trying to keep focused, but also catering to the needs of folks in the unique time that we're living in with coronavirus being so prominent.
Awesome. Thank you, you two. And I think that's really the key is we're going to be settled in. I don't know if we're going to, be out of the woods, so to speak, when it comes to this pandemic. And I think this leads into my next question, and I'll leave it to you, Darren, first, is what should sites have in mind for the next filing season, right? You talked about building it in and staying, aware and sort of helping clients understand that. But like, where does it start? Like, how do you really get all that going?
Yeah, it's a great question, Justin. In my mind, the first thing is having a clear plan and a clear ask. And you really start with that right now, kind of when it's the slower time, as Cary mentioned, and you've got a bit more time to figure out like what you want to focus on, what your messaging is going to be. I mentioned having, one or two kind of clear asks. So figuring out what those are. Are you connecting them with the financial coach? Are you focusing on benefits enrollment and rental assistance and eviction prevention? Are you doing a more traditional kind of savings type FinCap intervention that focuses on emergency savings? Kind of figure out what makes the most sense for your population and what will naturally fit into the tax conversation, and then like build that into everything that you're doing. And I was on a webinar with the CFPB recently, and they mentioned that having 5 touch points kind of helps to ensure that folks are clearly receiving that messaging. So that, like, as I mentioned, can be when you're doing outreach at the appointment moment, during intake, during tax prep, and during QR. But I also think that you've got to make sure that your team is just as bought into the idea and that they see the importance of it and the success of it, or the reason that it'll be really beneficial to the clients. Because if they can help to message the FinCap integration you're trying to make, so let's say you're focusing on eviction prevention, and you really want to connect your clients with a tool, with a local tool that helps them write a letter to their landlord. Everyone won't need this service, but for folks that do, it can be really nice. And there's a few really cool online tools to help with that folks fill it out. It takes about 5 minutes. They've got the tool and the resources they needed. Maybe they're not doing that whole thing in the tax moment, but you are sharing a link with them to let them do it with them later. So all that to say, like, being really focused, then building it into multiple points of the tax at the tax moment as well.
And I would say, even beyond the volunteers, Darren, it's very critical that the site coordinator is bought in. And I'm very willing to, as a former site coordinator, to cut those folks some slack, because there's just so much that they're expected to do. And especially now when we're looking at having to adjust to the different aspects of whether it's virtual or drop-off or some combination, it's a matter of making sure that we can look at some basic FinCap. As I described in a tax prep dispatch that was sent out by Prosperity Now just before all this happened, I talked about how Form 8888 is really part of the tax return. And so the idea of simply splitting your refund is as important as, do you use direct deposit, or all of the deductions that people qualify for accounted for. It's really a question of saying to the taxpayer, do you have a thought about how you'd like your refund handled, and make sure they know their options. And I think, especially now, it was just heartbreaking during the early coverage of the coronavirus pandemic to see people who had missed only one paycheck and were suddenly forced to line up in their car, a mile-long line for people who were trying to just get to the food pantry. And it was really painful to say, gee, that's only missing 1 week. What if they had enough emergency savings to forestall that sort of thing? So it's sort of like saying, wash your hands, wear a mask, build emergency savings. That's the thing that we need to think about. It's not going to be that you won't be affected by the pandemic, but it's certainly something that we can try to encourage people to do to prevent something that could be bad and getting worse.
Yeah, I love that, Cary. So I can add on to that really quickly. I love that you talked about the 8888 and how it can be used as a tool with clients, and really is a part of the tax return. And messaging for that can really be as simple as kind of letting your tax clients know that if you can deposit to multiple accounts, bring your account information for both your checking and your savings to your tax appointment. We'll talk more about it to you then, and kind of have folks be prepared to kind of initiate that, the usage of the 8888.
And even before COVID, there was a message that really seemed to resonate generally with people when they heard about the Federal Reserve study that asked people of all income levels, could you withstand an emergency or an unexpected expense without having to borrow or sell something? And that 4 in 10 people, no, I couldn't. It reminds me of the commercial of the guy who says, I've got the pool, I've got the membership in the country club, and I'm up to my eyeballs in debt. Please help me. Well, to be thinking about how, what could you withstand? Could you work toward that, $400? Many people said they couldn't afford that. Does that describe you? And if you're getting a substantial refund, could you afford to put a portion of that into savings now? Hey, if you can do $200, that's the savings that you found just by not going to one of the commercial preparers. You can put that in your savings account today and be halfway to meeting that $400 threshold.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great point, Gary. I feel like the tax moment is so unique because so many clients they're getting this, like, for some clients, it's as much as 1/3 of their total income in one large deposit. And of course, folks have plans for that all the time. But I feel like through FinCap, we can, and through integrating into the tax moment, there's a chance for us to really maybe encourage folks to put something away. Like something that we did in one of my prior positions was focus on connecting folks with 529s at tax time. And there was basically a research study that was done that said if clients have between $1 and $500, their kids are 4 times more likely to go to college and 3 times more likely to graduate from college. I actually think it's 3 times more likely to graduate, 4 times more likely to go. But all that to say, like, such a small amount of money can make a really big difference in helping kids or helping youth to kind of know that they've got money set aside for saving that's specifically for education, and having families feel like they're really connected to that, connected to the goal for their child. And I know that this may be a unique year where maybe folks aren't focusing on that as much, but if someone's getting $2,000 and they can put aside 25 of it, or $2 even, to go into an account, 25 I think is the minimum, but to go into an account, it can really make a big difference in like sending their child to college in the future.
See, one of my most proud moments, not one of my favorite moments in all the time I've been doing VITA, was seeing a man walking out of the tax site, hand in hand with his mini toddler son, standing a little taller because he had spent $50 from his refund to buy a savings bond. And in that moment, we know that buying a savings bond for $50 is not even going to buy one textbook today, let alone what junior's tuition bill will be 15 years down the road. But in that moment, that man became a long-term saver in his own mind. And it was as simple as making that $50 commitment. So, I see what you're saying, Dan. It's a matter of, in the brief time that we with someone, to try to get a sense of what their values are, what's important to them. And this man had his little boy with him. He made a remark about wanting to do something to start a college fund, and this was the perfect opportunity.
That's great, Gary. I love that example. Really powerful. And the savings bonds are so nice because it's a really low lift. It's easy in the tax return. You can mention it to the client. They can then opt into it. It's a really, really nice way to make an impact in someone's life. So great example.
Yeah, and they're not for everyone, to be sure. They don't pay a great rate of interest, but it's better than what savings accounts are paying. It's something that can be put aside and start that savings habit for the longer term. And VITA is the only place in America where you can still get a paper bond.
No, super true. Yeah, I love that. Connect to the client's goals and make sure that they're working towards that through the tax moment. That's beautiful.
Yeah, thanks. And I haven't even thought about that. But yeah, you can't get a paper bond anywhere. But this conversation's been really great and really helpful. And I think one thing we've sort of touched on, I think this will be sort of like the last 1 or 2 questions, is about partnerships. And you guys talked a lot about like your partnerships and your integrations and stuff. But what's one partnership that you've really enjoyed, as well as what partnership that you've really want to like explore going forward with your programs, either for yourself or for VITA in general?
We've had very good partnerships with some of our host locations, and I want to make sure that we never neglect them, because especially in this time, they're having a lot of uncertainty as well, and we need to work with them, find out what their goals and needs are, meet whatever their requirements are as far as social distancing and sanitation, if we're going to have a live space. Some of our volunteers have said that they do want to get together, even with no taxpayers present, to work on returns that have been either dropped off or sent electronically. I think Code for America provides a great opportunity for a lot of our sites. We've started to explore that relationship and really are excited about what that has in for us going forward. And I'm wondering how we can think about ways of incorporating FinCap into the process that Code for America uses in the Get Your Refund process.
Yeah, I echo everything that Cary said. I feel like caring for your partners on the ground who are either opening their spaces or opening their clients to be served by your organization is really, really paramount. I also think the folks at Code for America are doing really outstanding work in terms of making virtual VITA kind of easier and more friendly. And I know they're going to be doing some work between this tax season and the next to like really attempt to streamline that process even more. And something that I've been thinking, a few partners that I've been thinking about in particular is, so I typically have done taxes at organizations that also offer financial coaching. And if they don't offer financial coaching, then they partner with organizations locally that do. But because so many programs have moved to being virtual coaching, there may be an opportunity to connect with someone maybe who's in your state, but not in your city, who's offering that service virtually. And having a more clean and clear kind of referral pipeline, both for you to send tax clients to them and for you to receive, or for them to receive tax clients to you, and for you to send financial coaching clients to them. I think that coaching and taxes are really like brother and sister in terms of helping folks to achieve their financial goals, and can work really well and synergize together. In addition to that, there have been some really cool partnerships, and I feel like I'm always like trying to stay close to what's happening on the ground. But I know some folks have been focusing on 529s at tax time and connecting with their local children's savings accounts to make sure that if it is a 529 account, that folks can deposit directly to their children's savings account from at the tax moment. And sometimes in some states that means that a specific form will need to be added. But in many states and on the federal return, if you just have the account number and the routing number for those accounts, you can deposit directly and use Form 8888 to split just like you would anything else or a savings account. Some folks have been focusing on disaster relief match savings. So at Catalyst in Miami, we have a small grant that'll let us kind of focus on putting a part of refunds available for disaster relief savings at tax time. And we'll be kind of continuing that for the second year, which will be really interesting and nice. I feel like it's one thing to be in a pandemic and have to worry about a hurricane hitting you and being really devastating to your budget. So folks are able to put aside a little bit at tax time, they'll receive a small match for that. And I've also thought about if there's possibility to work greater with fintech organizations in the tax moment. And I know the folks at Financial Health Network are running a really unique initiative around connecting nonprofits with fintech organizations. And none of those initiatives focus on taxes, but I've always thought that there could be a really interesting potential to connect the tax moment with working with a fintech partnership. So it's maybe more of a kind of challenge for the field is there a chance to kind of do that? And then what does that look like? And how can we use that to really benefit our clients overall?
Awesome. Thank you, you two. And I really appreciate you guys taking a few moments out of your day. The last question I have as we're pushing up against time is, what is one thing you would want to tell any sort of volunteer getting into the FinCap game, any volunteer, any site getting into the FinCap game? I'll go to Cary first, and then Darren, you can answer to close this out.
Well, it's a two-part answer. Stay calm, first of all, and be willing to try different things. Don't get discouraged if, as has happened in our program, in the traditional VITA, we were trying things like a credit repair review. We were trying things like assisting with federal student assistance for financial assistance. And, it was not really well received. And so we gave it a try. We realized that staying in our lane, our greatest strength was helping people understand that they could split their refund. We've had tremendous success with that over the years. We've participated in the Save Your Refund promotion, which adds an element of fun, and in fact have had prizes awarded, and it's other people's money too. So thankful to Save Your Refund for being able to. We actually had 3 grand prize winners, as well as many smaller winners in our program over the years. So just in terms of looking at the tax moment as an opportunity for really get intimate, I'd say, with taxpayers and learn about their financial situation and how we can work together, not in opposing ways, but to be on the same page of helping people meet their goals.
Yeah, I love that, Cary. I agree. Goals first, and thinking of what makes the most sense for your program and the clients that you serve should also be really paramount. So I love your example with Save Your Refund and America Saves, because I feel like it's so funny with that program because it's like a little thing. It takes about just 2 or 3 minutes to do, to enter folks into the contest for the smaller prizes and a little bit longer for the grand prizes. But it can have such a benefit in terms of the culture of your VITA site. So at one of my sites, we had one winner the year before, but just being able to say that we had one winner who won $100, and it took about 2 or 3 minutes, was like enough to help us double the amount of folks that enrolled in the program the next year. So all that to say is like, to take your wins and celebrate your wins, build in nudges if you can to like help make your programs a success. So if you've done it year over year, folks may be interested to know, like, you can kind of ground them in, the average person saves about $50 or $25 or kind of whatever else data point aligns with what you guys have been seeing. And then folks may take that and then decide like, well, I think I can do that. That's super fair. So all of that to say, like, if there's something that I would recommend programs to do, it's try to figure out what's going to work for you. Even if it's just one thing, and that one thing is one question that you ask the client multiple times during the tax process, then that's fine. But like, figure out what's going to work for you, whether it be splitting refunds, referring to other organizations, connecting with other resources, and then essentially like do your best to champion it and really, really own it, and tell everyone at every level of the organization why it's important, and to report out your success or your opportunities to grow in the next year from trying that.
Yeah, I think that growth mindset is something that we'll need to explore. I mean, hopefully this won't be pandemic forever, but never know. So I think that just having growth mindset and being able to explore and try new things is sort of the key to FinCap, right? We're all in the business of trying to help people, improve their financial standing and improve their financial well-being. So why not try something new? And with that, I want to thank Darren Liddell and Cary Gladstone for joining this edition of Knights of the Tax Roundtable, and look forward to seeing the next edition anytime soon. All right, bye everyone.